All right, we welcome you to another episode of Learning Stories. This is a show where we profile a diverse set of learners from the 21st century. In each episode of this show, we interview a guest who has a story to share about how they acquired a set of skills and knowledge in a creative and innovative way. In the process, we hope to uncover a new definition or a new understanding of learning as conceptualized, narrated, and imagined by the guest on our show. Today's guest, Surel, is someone I've known for a really long time. We went to university for 1 year together. And today, Surel is a music producer, composer, and instructor based out of Mumbai, India. He's produced music and he's done film scores for several films and TV series. And he's also created music for a lot of commercials. I will be linking Surel's website in the show notes. Please do look up his work right after this show. I spent the whole evening listening to all his songs, and it was just such an amazing experience. But a little more about Cyril and his background. Taking forward the music legacy of his family into the sixth generation, Cyril is a versatile musician who has especially shown his expertise in the field of film scoring and background music composition. Having completed his formal education in music from the prestigious Musicians Institute in Hollywood, LA, he has worked on a variety of projects originating from both India and the US. Surel is a classically trained piano player who has been very active as a music educator for a long time. Surreal's music leans a lot towards orchestral arrangements and composers like John Williams, Alexander Desplat, and Hans Zimmer. These musicians and composers have been a major influence on his musical style. He loves spending time nerding out in the latest music production softwares and instruments, and is always up for a chat with anything related to music or food. Like a random side note is that he can also bake some excellent brownies. But
That, although that was during like the lockdown, now I'm not baking anymore.
but I wish I could bake anything honestly. So that's definitely a superpower. But Surreal, like looking at your background in music, my first question was what was Surreal like growing up? What were your earliest memories of music when you were a child?
So I think I consider myself fortunate enough to be born in a musical family. Like you just read out, my grandfather. I mean, I haven't obviously met all my ancestors, but I am the sixth generation who is into music in my family. All of my great grandfather used to be a court musician in a district called Satara. My grandfather is a very, he passed away recently, a few months back. He was a classical singer. My father is a musician. So, unknowingly, I guess from childhood, music has been falling on my ears uh, since probably like the day I was born. I have videos of my dad shows me, like I am sitting on his lap playing the harmonium. He's playing the harmonium and I'm singing out notes. So, but I was never like forced by my parents that okay, I like my dad especially that I do this, so even you have to do music. So yeah, I guess for a long time, music was just a part of my. I used to think that oh, everybody's like home is like this, where people are listening to music like all day and like listening to good music. After a while, when I probably got out of school, I realized okay, it's not everybody's house is like that. So yeah, but I never honestly, but like that time never considered that I would be a musician too. Like never even like it wasn't even implied by my parents at any point of time that okay, this is something I have to do as a profession. In fact, I won't say they were discouraging; they were very encouraging. But
Hmm.
they've always made me aware of the drawbacks also of being in an industry that is so different, competitive, and not easy to honestly find your way around. Compared to a lot of other uh, fields or professions.
Interesting, Surreal. I when I was younger, I had the complete opposite experience. Like I didn't have anyone to teach me music, and the
Like,
first time I went for a music class, I was actually I mean, the teacher was not very, as in I was very scared because whenever I made a mistake, it was actually like a guitar class, and I did not do very well in the first few classes, and then after that, because of that experience, I never explored
Yeah,
music further, so I know, because you're also teaching right now, like, so if someone like wants to learn music when they are like a student, what is the path they have? Like, can they take classes? Do they have opportunities at school? Like, what do you recommend as a path first for a student that wants to learn music based on your experience?
correct. So I used to be teaching, of course, but because of my work getting so busy in the last couple of months, recently around a year back, I've stopped teaching. But again, I do a few workshops and sessions here and there. But of course, I used to be an piano teacher for a long time. I used to teach at different institutes. I've taken some master classes and stuff. Uh, as so I mean, that's a great question because right now there are like million different options. If you want to start off learning music, there are these. I mean, recently I discovered this app, which was I had no idea because it literally recognizes it's a guitar learning app. I forgot the name, but it's actually recognizing what you're playing. So if you're
Hmm.
learning a song, the app detects what chord you're playing and then moves on to the next chord, which is pretty brilliant, I guess. So technology has come such a long way in terms of music, and even YouTube. Just even if you just go on YouTube and search how to play this song, in fact, 200 videos of just one song being played by different people. Uh, that also it's also, I mean, a little difficult for people to filter out what's good and what's bad, because now, because everything is just there online out there, it could be hard to kind of have a streamlined approach. So I come from a opinion on and from my experience that yes, you should definitely have a structured process if you seriously want to take up music.
Hmm.
So as a kid, I would still recommend, like, if parents are wanting their kid to, or if the firstly the interest should be there.
Hmm.
Music or any art form, it's not something you can force. You see a lot of kids. Because I used to be teaching, I used to see a lot of kids just there because their parents have enrolled them. They had no real interest. They had other interests, of course. They had other interests, so they used to be keep talking about those. Like if someone was into football, for example, they used to be so enthusiastic talking about that with me. So I would rather spend time talking to someone who is passionate about what they want to do. So definitely first thing is recognizing that, and of course that could take some time. It's not like when you're 5 years old, 6 years old, it's hard to know what that person actually likes. So keep experimenting, keep doing. Don't lock yourself, I think, in one. Like many people just try like you said that you went for a guitar lesson and you didn't do well, so you didn't go back. But
Hmm.
maybe let's say if you had gone for a drum lesson after that, you would have liked it. So even in music, it's not music is so vast.
Hmm.
I have seen people like give up an instrument and then they find some other instrument, or maybe they like singing and then they like really flourish in a different music department in itself. Music is again vast, like I said. So once you, yeah, of course, don't give up. Like, yeah, even as a parent, if you're sending your kid and he doesn't find interest, try it a few times, try something else. There are thousands of instruments and thousands of, I mean, I'm a music producer, I'm not even a full-time instrumentalist or anything. This is a new the music production wouldn't have existed without technology.
Hmm.
Technology and music is, they go hand in hand. So this is a new profession that kind of opened up in it's as musical as any other. It's as it requires as much practice and years of experience as you would do like learning becoming a concert pianist or whatever, like any virtuoso player. So yeah,
That's
that's pretty much, I
yeah,
hope that answer.
that's really interesting, Sureli. And I think some of the things you said, I think it must be so different for your dad and your grandfather for them to learn music. I think they must be looking at you and how you're learning music and be like, agar ye sab hota, or all of this, if it was there at
Correct.
my time, it would be so different. But I think even in their time, there were, I know in certain parts of India, there are these schools of music where you work with one teacher or one guru,
Correct. Correct.
and
Gurukul system. I think it's called.
yeah,
Yes.
like how would those systems work, where you would basically just be with one teacher for like 20 years, and is that what it
Yes.
is?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you've seen the movie, have you seen that movie Disciple?
No, I
It
haven't.
has
No, sir.
won a lot of awards recently. But yeah, that's so that system is more nowadays. It's still very less, but it comes more from an Indian classical traditional this where uh, the teacher, basically the guru, is God basically for the like you're there since childhood, and for them basically you're not even allowed to perform anywhere till till the teacher says that you are like you have reached that level now.
Hmm.
So you need that. I mean, in today's world it's very hard to follow that because people have uh, whatever they have necessities. We have to earn money as well, right? I mean, if
Yeah.
you're if you can't perform your art, uh, you have to pay your bills. So today's world it's hard. But yeah, at a time there was this whole system, and especially in classical, where you have to be how many years? It's not like 20 years till the time the teacher thinks that okay you are ready for to go out and perform.
Hmm.
Till then you are just supposed to shadow the teacher, like go maybe sing with them on their shows or yeah, this system is there definitely.
Yeah, because I mean they're both so contrasting, right? It's real in terms of
Yeah.
using technology, and I think now it's more DIY, but I think there's definitely a benefit of being with someone who's really experienced in that, craft or
Mm.
profession. But like Surel, like you also mentioned something about like making a living as a musician and music producer. Like to get to a point where you can make a living for using
Mm.
your skills. How do you I mean, like what led to you making this decision about studying music at university, or what did you study at university, and how did
Mm.
you go about getting your skills in music right after
Right.
school? What was your path?
Right. So, I mean, we were in the same class. So when we did BMM, I even when I was in college, by that time I had never thought of pursuing music as a career. I had been learning piano as an instrument. I had taken that pretty seriously. I was giving all the exams and stuff, but that was one part of it. Uh, but by the time, so I always wanted to go into films. I wanted to make films or whatever, become a filmmaker.
Hmm.
But then I did a few internships towards the end of our college, and I realized, okay, this is. I mean, I was on set. I remember I was interning in some big production house on set, and all day it was just so the whole atmosphere was so intimidating. Like everyone is shouting, and I mean, I loved watching films. I'm a huge movie fan. Like I'm
Yeah.
almost watching a movie a day even now. But I clearly realized, okay, this is definitely not my aptitude, and it's not gonna work out. And then I did this small 3 month like crash course in like basics of sound engineering somewhere here locally only.
Hmm.
That really opened up. I really like thank that teacher like for I mean I think it kind of changed my direction of it kind of got me clarity ki, okay by the time I graduated I knew okay this is really interesting and one way to kind of bring those two worlds of film and music both of which I love together was film scoring.
Wow.
So this is something. So yeah, then I took a break here after college. I took 1 year out because I obviously had to apply for university. It's not
So
easy to get.
so the BMM course was like a Bachelor of Mass Media, just for people that are not familiar with it,
Yes,
Okay, and you
yes,
learn
yes.
about journalism and filmmaking and a bunch of different mass media related things,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Got it. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Go
And
ahead.
I guess that those 3 years were also great in terms of the people I met, uh, like you and a lot of others. Yeah, but like you, I mean, you can agree that the kind of people we had around, like the kind of exposure we got, I guess it was very practical. Like we did so many. projects where, so that was one thing where, so I remember because we used to do so many projects where we had to shoot film, like
Right.
some short film or whatever documentary. I was one of the, there were few guys who could like, so everybody used to come to me कि ये sound का करके देना कुछ,
Yeah.
can you please clean इसका sound, can you please do some music for this or whatever. I was in the group, I could do it, I used to do that. So that used to be my role in all most of the projects, to do the sound of it. So that also got me into all of these things led up to being okay. Then I thought, "Okay, okay, I can do this seriously." As of course, it was not a easy decision. There's so much uncertainty, where this could go. So after that, I applied. I went to MI in Los Angeles. Uh, it's a very big school. I mean, Ehsan Nurani from Shankar Ehsan Loy has also studied from there. So I'd known about that school, and I had a great set of faculty. I mean, I was very lucky to have such
So
great
you
teachers
actually,
there.
so you went to the US and you, was it an
Yeah,
in-person course, and how long? What
yeah.
was it, like, what was the structure of the course, Surel, and what did you learn over there?
So I was there for a year. I was studying in Los Angeles in the in person. Everything. This was around 2016 fall, uh, and the course was called keyboard technology. So it was more focused towards live. So the school itself is known for a lot of live musicians, like more contemporary music, whereas Berkeley School of Music, which is very popular again in Boston, is more of a conservatory kind of school where there are more of classical musicians coming out from there. But MI is known for very good like contemporary musicians. So yeah, there I had an elective actually for film scoring, which kind of got me towards more into the. So initially I was like, I want to become a music producer. Okay, I was learning there. We had a different modules of softwares that we have to use, music theory, even playing live with different people. I'd got to play with such amazing people because Los Angeles is a place where, like how in Mumbai, the everybody wants to work in like the film industry comes to Bombay, right? So LA, it's like at a global stage. Everybody in the world who wants to come work in music or films, they come there. So I mean, I had a band where one person was from Brazil, the bass player was from Russia. Then we had two different groups, someone from Sweden, and these are the best of the best from those countries, right? Because if you're spending so much money coming there, you most of the times these people are serious about what they want to do. They're really passionate about what they want to do. All of them have their stories of how they reached at that one point. So that was pretty nice to have. I guess that matters. Like it's not just what you learn in class.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely that really shaped me like as a musician. The kind of people I got to just be around and play, like just learn from them, like just playing with them. Like every day we had to play with 20 different musicians. Like as a part of the curriculum, we had to play live performances. So
Wow.
even though I'm a studio musician now, I'm not a live musician, but that really helped me like get a lot of experience.
That's there. That's amazing. I think going sometimes, like moving out of your home, it, I think both in your college experience and your experience abroad, I think when you meet other people, it also gives
Yeah.
you perspective on, the different kinds of influences and backgrounds. And I think that's one of the benefits of, being in like a university setup is you get so
Yeah.
much exposure. And I completely agree that, our time in KC, or and I you were lucky to have that opportunity to go to LA to actually do that. So I mean, that's amazing. Like Surel, I always wondered, like, I'm not a musician, but I love listening to music, and sometimes my friends will ask me what kind of music you listen to. So I'll tell them the name of some bands, like this band that plays folk music, or this band,
Mm.
this song from a movie. But I'm not able to articulate my thinking about what kind of music I really like, and sometimes when I speak to, like some very experienced musicians, you tell me
Mm.
about like, Western classical music, Indian classical music, pop music. So as a musician, if you had to break this down in like 5 minutes, like how would you break down the world of music for a layperson like me, to explain to, like other people about where my inclination, because I can give you 10 bands that I really like, but I don't know what kind of music I really like, if that helps. So
Do you
does
want
it?
to tell me like five names maybe. Maybe we
So
can like take that as an example.
interesting. So I like the Lumineers. Is this like like,
I know Luminous. Yeah, yeah.
and I like a lot
Yeah,
of
this indie folk kind of.
yeah,
But yeah.
like a lot of Indian like indie artists like Pratik Kuhad, Anuv
Mm,
Jain.
mm,
Um, I like the local train, like
mm.
classic rock, like Indian rock. I like the Beatles, Bob Dylan. So I
Right.
mean, these are like generally. So I would say it's like classic rock, like indie folk sort of. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's pretty. So see, just like you said, like you like the Beatles as well as Pratik Kaur, right? Let's say that for example. Same with me. I mean, my playlist, like someone will literally get confused if you see my playlist. Like I'll be listening to music from the 1940s and like to some real like Dua Lipa, for example. I love
Yeah,
Dua Lipa's songs.
yeah,
So uh, it is. So I guess it's a great thing. I mean, this is something that I like about today's age is how streaming sites like Spotify or Apple Music have really opened up an entire world of music.
hmm,
Earlier what used to happen is when you had to buy music physically, you ended up buying it's like buying any other like thing that you like, right? So if you like rock music, you would end up buying 80% of your music library used to be of rock music. So
hmm,
you're not open to now because of these streaming sites or internet in general. Unknowingly, sometimes unintentionally, some song just pops up on your Spotify playlist, and you're like, okay, wow, that's a nice song. What I want to explore more of this artist, and
yeah,
then you explore that artist, you find out, okay, this is a genre that I've never heard before. Then Spotify will show you three different artists in that same genre. Ki, oh, why don't you listen to these? These are the artists that people have also liked.
yeah,
uh, so, for example, if you have like John Mayer, they'll say, okay, these three artists are similar to his style, and you might like these also.
yeah,
So, so it's really not. Also, the music being made now in itself is very cross genre. Like the music itself is taking influences from different forms of styles. Like even maybe a Pratik Kaur song could be something that he's inspired maybe from a Beatles song.
yeah,
So again, it can be classified into different genres, and all of these apps actually make it easier for you to classify because if you can literally go to the genre section, and like let's say you click on neo soul, for
yeah,
example,
yeah,
so you see a couple of artists that okay now you know okay this is called neo soul. So I guess it is at one like side, I would say it's not even necessary now in today's world to really classify what you're listening to
yeah,
because there's just so much like it's great, like
yeah,
it's all a mix now.
yeah,
You don't have to be like, oh, you know what, I only listen to like jazz and like blues. That's it's nobody does that. I mean,
yeah.
90% people now are listening to a wide variety of music.
Yeah, that's so interesting, Surel, because I really like house music too, but I also like, like,
Right.
and I also like, like soul and folk, and I think,
Correct.
and I completely agree. Like, I think, like a program, like whatever, Savan, Spotify, or Ghana.com or whatever, I think they must be like magic for people from, like even us. I think we were just the
Yeah.
transition generation because when I was younger,
Yeah.
I remember buying cassettes for like
Yeah.
every movie, and then I think people also had, like CD players. I forgot what they're
Yeah.
called. Those big CDs. What are they called, Cyril? Like
Vinyls.
yeah, like vinyl records at one point of time were the main way to listen, and you had to pay for every song. But today
Yeah.
I think you can actually, so that's really interesting that music discovery allows you to actually explore different genres. But like, what are some of the main genres of music that like, because I want to understand, apart from these two, what are, so like when someone says pop or hip hop or R&B or jazz, like what do they mean? What do they, I mean, as a musician or music composer, how would you explain these different, like maybe if you had to explain five main genres in a few sentences, what would they look
Uh,
like?
I really wouldn't still say ki there are five main genres. So especially in the West, like all these Western genres of music are so distinct amongst themselves.
Okay.
Uh, So I guess rather than saying five main, we can probably have like two branches from where. So most of them originate from one kind of like the other. So
Okay.
let's say in back in the early days in Western music, like there were two branches that music I came from is Western classical and early forms of actually blues or jazz music.
Okay.
So I guess around the 1920s or something. Like if you listen to like when you think of music in the 1800s or 1700s, what music comes to mind? Like classical music, Western
Yeah.
class. You
Yeah.
think of Mozart, Beethoven, and all of those
Yeah.
guys, right? Because that was the only there was no like I said, technology and music go hand in hand. House
Yeah.
music wouldn't have existed without computers
Very
because it's
interesting.
literally made from computers or analog even before like synthesizers came.
Yeah.
Electricity, let's say.
And I
These
think
are all
like
electronic forms.
yeah, like in an Indian context, even court musicians were really popular at that point, right? People that
Yeah,
used
so
to
India mein Indian classical music you can say.
got it.
Uh, any other form of Indian music has been apart from Indian classical. It's again come from like it's a mix of all like jazz, pop, EDM or whatever. Like whatever you're listening, Bollywood music is a great example of cross genre. Like Bollywood is not a genre. Like it's become a genre of its own now.
Mm.
Uh, like the mixture of because you can have a song in a movie in a Bollywood film which is has Latin piano playing
Yeah.
behind, but the rest of the song, the singing style is very Indian classical. So I mean that's a genre in itself now, like a fusion kind of thing. But yeah, I guess in Western, like the question you asked is, I would say these two are the main genres in Western music. And whatever came from one side, classical remains still class. So whatever maybe the music you listen to in film scores is still very much John Williams and Hans Zimmer. All these guys are still using the traditional Western classical orchestra, where there are 80 people playing 40 violins, violas, cellos, all of them are playing together.
Got it.
So that's like a new style of that. But rest of all the other, whatever you say, hip hop, pop, jazz, R&B, they all originate from basically jazz music. You can say was like a rebel music, right?
Hmm.
To at that point of time, there was a lot of stuff happening politically.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a revolution. Like if you see, only African American people were they started this whole they started jazz music back in New Orleans.
Yeah.
They were that was the first place where jazz music came out.
Yeah. Yeah. When I that's a like you also mentioned meeting a lot of people. Thanks for that distinction, Surya, because that really helps me like sort of organize that world, but also,
Yeah,
play around with these definitions of what music is. I think what speaking to you made me realize is that our musical influences and choices can be so diverse and wide ranging, and
yeah,
you need to be open to these diverse
yeah, yeah.
influences, and that's really amazing. But like something, the point you made about music being a vehicle for political expression, or like
Mm,
every culture, even in India, all of us come from different parts of India. Each
correct,
state has its own kind of music.
correct,
Even in countries like Brazil, the US, Mexico, Australia, all of them use music to tell something about the culture. So,
correct.
like, is that another purpose of music? Apart from just pleasure, like not only written but also instrumental music. Does it communicate something about the time that we're living in a way?
Definitely, it does. Even maybe if not I, as a musician now, if I have to say, I don't compose from a political. Like every time I said to compose something, I'm not like okay, this is the political message I want to say. But yeah, as a collective, if you see, if you maybe look back at history and how music has evolved,
Yeah,
unknowingly, yes, any art form, I would say, not just music, any art is a mirror of society at that point of time. Uh, so yeah, again, I'm not a very politically inclined person or knowledgeable person in terms of that. But if you look back at history, yes, I would definitely agree that I mean the key. points where music really changed or some new genre was invented have been uh, politically, influenced.
True.
Those have been like turning points in history, I would say.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's so powerful to think about how music and like one of the other things that I have noticed in my own life, Surreal, is that sometimes I'm going through a particular phase in my life. I'm feeling down
Hmm.
or feeling really happy, and I can find a song to associate with that emotion that actually
Correct.
enhances that emotion. And
Correct.
even though I haven't trained in music or I haven't learned music formally, I get so much joy from that process. And
Yeah.
I think even in film sometimes music comes in especially in Bollywood, for instance, they do a great job in bringing a song to push the story forward you
Correct.
know and I think that is so interesting because as a viewer suddenly I'm engaging with this musical element of the
Yeah.
characters'
Yeah.
lives. That is so interesting. And I like like for you, like were there some musicians that you felt um like if you had to list out some of your favorite musicians that helped you
Hmm.
through certain parts of your life, or just somebody you enjoy listening to,
Yeah.
who would you list
Definitely.
out
I
as
mean,
your
I have
name?
way too many musicians. Like I love
Like somebody that we can just listen
that.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
I guess when I was in the US only, I loved, and I was had this phase where I used to listen to a lot of Nora Jones. Stevie Wonder really, I feel, was a it really influenced my way of looking at music. Stevie Wonder is a huge influence on like is and because there are so many artists that are inspired from him.
hmm,
So I guess he kind of invented an entire genre. I guess because he kind of made he had a lot of jazz. I'm a big fan of jazz, as you could have noticed. I keep saying that because I had learned a little bit. A piano teacher used to be a jazz piano teacher,
hmm,
so he kind of made that. Jazz is something that what everybody says. Any, not every person likes jazz because they say, "Oh, it's complicated, so it's music only for musicians," kind of thing. He kind of made that. How do you say? Palatable, like
hmm,
for anybody. Like he made that possible when it wasn't jazz anymore. Like it was pop, but still it had those even as a musician, I could really appreciate the intricacies of okay, this is so cool. I want to learn what he's doing. How is he doing that? At the same time, it was fun. Just if anybody could listen to it or hum the tune. So I have way too many influences. John Mayer, I'm a huge fan of John Mayer. Uh, Classical, like I have influences in every genre of music. So maybe if you ask me, what would you like in like as a film scoring guy, like John Williams, for example, huge influence. We have all, and if I tell you right now the kind of scores he's composed, even you'll be like the Star Wars theme
yeah,
and Harry Potter. These are all like we've grown up listening to
listening.
his music, all of us.
Yeah,
So
and
that really shaped, I guess, my
yeah,
influences.
I mean, like one thing I was looking through your website, Surel, if you could include a section of all the music you like and recommend, that would be really nice, because I think
That's a great design.
that would like help me as a because like my only method to discover new music is actually like Spotify, and
Yeah.
often or like any other listening, they recommend the same songs that I listen to.
Correct, correct.
They
Because
don't
they have
recommend.
an algorithm. Correct.
Correct. So even YouTube, for that matter, like I listen to like a lot
Yeah,
of Bollywood music or like a particular band. So they
yeah,
keep giving me the same songs. So the only way
true.
I actually listen to new musicians, like now I've spoke to you about like Stevie Wonder or Nora Jones. I'll probably go back and I
Yeah.
remember one of my friend. Like we were just like kind of bored at I think, and we were like, how do you listen to a musician's music? And he told me this idea is that you take all their music and you listen to
Mm.
all their albums chronologically. Do you think that's a good idea, Surel? Like from their first song to their most recent?
Yeah, I actually do that. Like now that I think of it, like
Yeah,
even if I'm listening to something on, so let's say if I come across a song on Spotify,
yeah,
which I really like, I'll actually, now that you mentioned it, like I was doing this unknowingly, but then I open that artist profile and I
yeah,
go, I'm kind of not against, but I hate listening to just singles. I'm a fan
right,
of albums. I
got
want
it.
to listen to the whole story.
Got it.
So I will go down and scroll and see what was their first album.
Ah, okay.
Um,
And
Also
why?
because
But why do you do that? I mean, because I do that because I'm like, this is interesting. But does it help you see how the musician has evolved over time?
yeah, exactly that. Plus, I feel when usually the first album is the true raw like self of that artist,
Hmm.
uh, because any artist will eventually tend to kind of not deviate but get influenced or change their style of, because times change obviously. You have to keep up with also the kind of music that's being made, so artists do change their style of music, and you can notice that any artist you go listen to his latest song, it will sound like the songs that are there
Correct.
in that genre at least. Not saying it in a bad way. Good
Yeah.
only, like good songs, but yeah, they keep evolving. First album is, you can, many people are still experimental in their first, because first they want to give their best.
Yeah.
Like I'm working on my EP now,
Wow.
and I'm like I've been spending a year just thinking, okay, what I want, like what I want to say in this, like
Yeah.
what is the kind of sound I want. People usually end up then after that, let's say your album becomes hit, then a lot of the musical decisions are also not influenced just by you. There are many other factors that come into play. Maybe the artist has some like requirements from the publication or the record label saying that, oh, people really are listening to dance music, so we want you to put that. So many
Yeah.
times that also happens, but usually the first record is what the musician actually wants to make. It's
Hmm.
not influenced by anybody else. Yo, we want you to make this, we want you to make that.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that rawness is something you often connect to, right? And I think that's something that, and so like musicians create singles, and then those singles can be combined together to form an album. Is that how most music is organized, Surya? Like albums and singles, is that the general organization
Sorry,
of it?
I didn't get your
No,
question.
like you mentioned albums and singles, like, like I noticed,
Singles.
yeah, like
Huh.
singles, like music. So is that
Huh.
generally how musicians put out their music? Is they release one
So
single song?
nowadays it's become the norm where you will see, instead of someone, so there is this fear that, more than fear, see, if you release 4 songs in 4 months,
Yeah,
every song is going to get 1 month of exposure to this audience, right? So
got it.
uh, it comes from a marketing perspective where people want every song to be given that much amount of time to be heard,
Got
and then at the end, maybe after 6 months, they'll put all those 4 songs in an album. But then my problem is, by that time that album comes, I've already heard the 4 songs.
it. Mm,
They obviously they add a couple of new songs to the album, but then that excitement of, when my favorite artist releases a new album, completely entirely new album, I'm so excited. I'm waiting to go home and, okay, play all the songs from start to end in that album. Oh wow, I'm gonna get to hear 8 new songs today, from my favorite artist. That excitement, I guess, singles take away that part of music experience, as listening. And then again, every single could be a different kind of vibe, because let's say after 4 months, fifth song could be influenced by how the third song worked. What if
mm,
the second? So what did they also gauge that what kind, if the song is working or not?
mm.
It comes from a lot of marketing perspective rather than a creative. That's what I personally feel.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting to think about, because um yeah, but Surel, like I'm curious about your day-to-day life. I know in your bio you mentioned, you do film scoring, you do music production, sometimes you also do music teaching, and I know, when you do get time, you also have, performances. But what does the life of a musician look like what do you do on a day-to-day basis? Like if you had to break down each of these categories: film scoring, music production, music teaching, like what do you do in each of these things on a day-to-day basis? And maybe after answering that question, I want to know what is in your studio in the back. Like
Okay,
what are
sure.
the yeah.
Um, so day to day, I mean, I don't usually, like, it depends. As a freelancer, as any freelancer, I don't have a fixed schedule as such. I mean, so this is my studio. I come home. I go home after work, and usually this is where I do all my work. Uh, I used to earlier. I usually don't try to go home and be still, be working. I do have a secondary small setup in my house as well. But when I'm home, I try to be with my family, spend time with them, spend time at home. But day to day basis, I can't really divide it as such. It honestly depends on, let's say, if I'm working on, like currently, I'm working on a film. So I'm doing the songs also in that film and the background score also now, which are two very different things,
Hmm.
and each of the songs are also very different from each other.
Hmm.
So, but I have like it's every day it's different. Like yesterday, I was recording the guitar parts for a song with a guitarist in my studio. But today, I have to, let's say, because the editor wants to edit something according to what music I've made. So I come home and I do that part. So as a musician in today's age, I feel this is something you can't really be like, okay, I'm gonna work on only this one thing at one time. You really have to be like, present everywhere. It's hard, obviously, because especially being such a creative thing, uh, you have to very quickly be able to zoom out of one thing and zoom into the other, come back again, come in again.
Hmm.
So, and that comes with experience. But like, I'm still learning how to do that well, because I sometimes still see, because I see all the greats in the industry doing like four films at a time and releasing such wide in like 4 months. They have four different. And like, how do you do it? Like, I get so invested in one thing. So yeah, I guess we're all still learning.
That's yeah, and yeah, I guess like just thinking about how you have to be flexible in that
Yeah.
profession, like depending on the, I think it's more project to project based
Yeah.
in terms of
More
your
project to
work.
project.
Very interesting, yeah.
Definitely.
And I think the freelance opportunities are like something that you have to like create and market for yourself, because I noticed your website is very well organized. So I think like a website really tells people what kind
Yeah.
of music you make and how you go about doing it, right? Like
Yeah.
what are, I mean, this is like another separate studio space you have. So like what are some of the parts of your studios today? Like if you had to show me, I mean, you'll actually.
So I mainly have a studio rather than a. So when you say studio, your image might be like like glass wall with a recording there. So that is more of a traditional recording studio.
Got it.
What I have is a music production kind of setup where I do record a lot of live musicians, but then I usually will book another studio for that. This is I in my line of work. Usually, I'm the only one who's working uh, at one time. So I mean, it's my studio is messy right now. I can't really show you everything, but mainly this is like my setup here. Like
Okay.
I work on a laptop because it's flexible, and nowadays laptops have become really powerful. I've been always working on a laptop
Got it.
rather than traditional desktop setup, because then I also sometimes go somewhere else to work.
Yeah.
Maybe I have to go work I work with other composers as well, being a music producer, so I might have to just go pick up my stuff. So my stuff has to be portable. But as and when you keep buying new stuff and doing more music, it gets less and less portable. It becomes hard, but yeah, I still try. This is just a keyboard. Like this is I use this to record anything and everything. You can now it's possible to record any instrument basically uh, in the world. Like whatever you think of is available as a virtual instrument. They're called VSTs.
Oh.
So you can just open up a software. Let's say I want to play a bass guitar, add a bass guitar. So I have a software which has 10,000 types of bass guitars that are there. I can select one and I can play the bass guitar on through this keyboard. It's called a
Wow.
MIDI controller.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So any kind of sound you want, you can sample your own voice as well. Let's
Mm.
say I wanna say many people do that in songs. Let's say I wanna record like hey hey in a song, right? I can record that and it'll play here as a sample. So one second, sorry, I got a call.
Oh, that's good.
Uh,
That's good.
yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much. I need a audio interface to connect all of this together. These are my monitors you call. So not the screen
Yeah.
in a studio. These are actually called monitors, the
Okay.
speakers. So these are not your regular set of speakers. These have to be calibrated at a certain. They are basically flat in frequency. What we hear at home, headphones and speakers, they are certain frequencies are boosted in them for us to be able to enjoy music.
Got it.
But in a studio environment, you need everything to be very flat and neutral, basically, so that we
Mm.
can add color to it. And when you're listening, we don't have the perceived image is very like transparent, basically. Yeah, and different, you can see I have three different screens because there's just so many, like I said, there's so many plugins and everything going on at once. So
Yeah.
it becomes hard to place them all in on one screen. So I usually need three, like if especially in film scoring, one screen has to be dedicated for the film itself,
Got it.
one screen for the actual software, the DAW that I'm working on, and
Yeah.
other screen maybe some other editing I'm doing there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. There's another room I have where we it's a soundproof room,
Yeah.
uh, where you have to record the vocals and any live
Yeah,
stuff.
so I was like listening to some of the tracks on your website, whether it's Bloom or the song that you made with some of your friends, Tauba Tauba. I also was listening to the podcast. Shivani was actually on this podcast, but the score the
Yeah,
music piece you made for them for Peace in a Pod, or Guilty Minds. What was it like working on some of these projects? Maybe if you talk about Guilty Minds, because that's such a big series that was released worldwide. Like, how did you go about creating music for that? I know that has like a law based, I mean, the legal man, it's a law firm. The two protagonists are, so how did you go about creating music for that show, or like producing
right.
music?
So for Guilty Minds, I was actually working with for another composer called Sagar Desai. He's the one who hired me as a music producer for a few episodes. So I think for 5 episodes I've done in that series. It's
Okay.
very interesting because I guess I haven't done something this kind of genre before. Like you said, and especially coming in between a show. So you even have to like I hadn't seen the first 5 episodes. I
Okay.
had to directly go in on the fifth one and try to get, and because the deadlines are so short, you don't really have time to sit and watch whatever's been done.
Got it.
You have to really go for it from the get go.
Got it.
So definitely you can I mean you have to spend a little bit of time getting a hang. First few usually when doing TV shows or any web series, first couple of episodes are where the harder part, like where you have to really like sit down and create the sound of, because sound plays a huge role in defining, creating that world, right? When
Mm,
you watch Stranger Things, sound, you can see how the music has to be from that era, and
mm,
it's part of the, it creates the world basically. So first few episodes or first few moments are very crucial in terms of establishing how this how everyone is interacting, what you have to take in mind, everything in that scene.
mm,
How what's the time period, what's the emotion of people, what's the overall genre, like what's the overall feel of the show. Of course you have to know what happens in the end as well, so you keep that tone. If it's going to be a dark tone, sometimes you can find examples of shows being wrongly scored as well, where you feel that okay, but this scene is not that tense, but music is making it that way. So you have to find that balance also, because you have to see how well it's shot also.
mm.
Sometimes directors will come and say, oh, I really want this intense action music, we have so much action going on, but then if it's not actually being executed on the camera, of
Yeah.
course, as a, it is also our job to elevate what's there. So
Correct.
even if let's say the action is not so much, my job is to make it feel like okay, it's there and it's fast paced. I have to make it like a running kind of track.
Mm.
But if I overdo it, then people might not even like it. They're like, why is this like so fast? Like the scenes are not moving so fast. So you really have to balance it out a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, that I mean that's very, very interesting, because I think every project comes with its own challenges, right? So real, and I
Yeah.
think you have to really understand the vision of the creator in that project, and I mean, Cyril, I want to be respectful of time, and I just wanted to say, Cyril, I could talk to you for hours and hours. I hope you do more such interviews because I think you are so knowledgeable about music and music production in general. But for the listeners listening to this show, right after this interview, I will be linking Surel's website and his YouTube channel that has some of his music. Please do follow him on all these platforms and reach out to him if you have any music production or music composition activities that you want to work on. I know Surel is available for freelance projects, right? Surel, I mean, if anyone does
Yeah.
want to reach out to you, his contact details are on his website. I spent, a good hour listening to some of his music. Even if you don't want to work with him, please spend some time listening to his wonderful music. But Surel, I'm excited for your EP. Whenever that does come out, I will be the first one to purchase
Yeah, and
a
thank you
copy.
so much, Abhishek. You are a wonderful host, and yeah, it's been great. Actually, correct. We've spoken after so long. It's been years, so it was great connecting with you again. I
Thanks.
hope to see you soon.
Yeah, and I hope that happens soon, Cyril. But thank you
Yeah,
again for all your work, and for
thank
the
you.
listeners, thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of Learning Stories. Stay tuned for more such episodes with new people and new stories. And until then, keep learning.